In today's episode of Can I Retire, we're going to talk about what you should be thinking about if you're going to be retiring the next 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. So in today's hypothetical case, we've got Jim and Pam, not Halbert, but hypothetical, and we're going to show you what they should be thinking about and give you an idea of anything from income planning to where you should be putting your assets, to how to reduce your tax obligations, to what should we be doing for life insurance, for long-term care insurance, and maybe to wrap everything up with estate planning, the wills and trust, all of those fun things. If we haven't met, my name is Tony Hansman. I'm a financial advisor with Guardian Financial, and this is our series called Can I Retire? So let's dive right into today's case. I've got Jim and Pam hypothetical. You can see Jim works for paper company ABC, and he makes about $140,000 a year. I'm going to give him a small little 2% increase in that salary. He's currently 57 years of age, and he thinks he wants to retire in about 10 years from now. Maybe a little earlier, maybe a little bit later, but he's thinking, what does my case look like? What should I be thinking about over the next 10 years? And then Pam, she also works for ABC. She makes about $75,000 a year. We're going to give her a 2% increase as well. Currently 57 years of age, and she's going to retire at the same time as Jim so they can enjoy retirement together. I come down to Jim's Social Security, and you can see at the age of 67, and I'm not saying this is when you should turn on your Social Security. He's just simply saying, what does it look like at the age of 67? Because one thing that we're going to want to do if we get time in this video is figure out when the best time to maximize our Social Security, whether that's at 62, 65, 67, age 70. It's going to be very important to consider. So at 67, his Social Security amount would be $3,250. Pam's Social Security at the age of 67 also, retirement at the same time, would be approximately $2,800. Now, I'm going to give them a 2.25% cost of living adjustment, also known as COLA. But if I come over here to my COLA history, you'll see in the past 10 years, COLA has been approximately 2.75%. And in the last 50 years, it's been 3.7%. So you say, well, Tony, why don't you use one of those numbers? Well, I'm just going to be a little conservative on this particular case, just in case things change in the near future. Social Security's having some challenges and they're going to have to make changes to keep that thing going. So I'm just being more on the conservative side there is why I'm doing that. Pensions, Jim and Pam aren't going to have a pension, so we're going to leave that section completely blank. Now I'm going to jump over to our assets tab and see where all these liquid assets are. Remember, they have about $1 million in liquid assets, and the net worth is about $1.6 million overall. So you can see Jim in his 401k has right at $650,000. He's done a good job of saving. He's also plowing about $1,500 a month match into their company 401k. Pam 401k has right at $300,000, and she's also putting in $1,250 a month. They have a bank account, a savings that has right at $50,000 in it. They're not putting anything into that currently. And then they also have the checking account. I just show a zero balance just as a reminder that they've got that checking account, so I always know where it's at. If I scroll down, you can see their protected assets. This is where we're going to throw their home into. And you can see that they say that their house is worth about $600,000. So we've got, if I scroll down, liquid assets of right at $1 million, the house worth $600,000, for a total value of $1.6 million in this particular case. They owe a little bit of money on the house. We're going to get to that in just a second. But one thing that you'll hear me talk about that I would like to have seen a little bit differently, and I want them to be thinking at, especially at the age of 57 in this hypothetical case, is they're plowing all of their money into tax-deferred dollars. There's no really after-tax or any sort of Roth money going on here, and I'd really like to see a little bit more of an even balance. You've probably heard the saying, hey, listen, plow as much money as you can into your 401k, and because when you retire, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. So we're going to talk about taxes also in this video. You got to ask yourself, with our national debt being at an all-time high, with Medicare, Medicaid, our Social Security having challenges, a lot of government programs having challenges, do you think, and I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not trying to lead you in any way, but do you think the taxes in 5, 7, 10 years, do you think they might just happen to be higher? Okay, nobody knows. I'm not trying to say that that we do, but if you think that they might be higher, then you should be considering alternative places than just plowing money into your 401ks and IRAs. I'd like to see better balance between after-tax dollars and Roth money. So now I'm going to jump over to their expense tab. And you'll often see me, if you watch any of my videos, I'll put a flat dollar amount right in here in the current monthly expenses after taxes. But I'm going to take this and do it a little bit advanced case today and show you something a little interesting that I haven't done before. I'm going to click on this inflation tab, and you'll see that in the last 10 years, inflation's been about 2.82%. For the last 110 years, it's been an average of 3.27. Now, I understand we can argue inflation, how it's calculated in many different ways, and we'll put in whatever you want us to put in, but I'm going to use these numbers in this case. But I want you to look at it right here, the average inflation rate. Now, why is it less? Well, it's technically not less. What I did is, if I come down here, you can see that they have a mortgage, the house payment still. Their principal interest, that payment's not going to go up. It's going to stay a flat $2,250 for about the next 18 years. And then it's going to drop off. Will their taxes and insurance go up? Probably, most likely. So you can see if I come down to the next line, the real estate taxes, $800 a month. And right here, you can see I use 3.27% as an inflation growth on that. And I've done that on all of these different expenses. So if I come down to the homeowner's insurance of approximately $600 a month, 3.27% for inflation that continues to go on. I come down to utilities and gas, water and sewer, cable, maintenance, house cleaning, $475, $100, all the way down these expenses, and they all have an inflation percentage of 3.27%. So I'm just being a little bit more detailed here, a little more accurate for those engineer types or someone who really wants to dive into what their specific expenses are going to be and what that's going to look like. And it's just better planning in general. So if I come down to the food items, you can see they think that they spend about $550 a month in food. Dining out's about $400 a month. Clothing, $175, and then some personal care for about $200 a month, again using 3.27% for inflation. I'm going to come down, and Jim likes to buy cars about every 4 to 5 years, and he's just flat out told me, he's like, listen, I'm going to always have a car payment, and that's fine. I don't mind having that expense because he likes rotating those new vehicles. So we gave him $750 a month. Those are his words that he wanted to put in here. Some auto insurance, some fuel, and some auto repairs, all with that same inflation rate. We can change anything. So if you want to see an inflation rate to be higher on the car or the auto loan, then we'll just simply raise that. And then we've got some traveling. And if you'll take a look at the traveling right here, they want to spend about $24,000 a year or about $2,000 a month on average for their inflation from when they retire to about 2050 right here. So right at retirement for them would be about 67 that we're doing this for this case. And I call those our go-go years. So right after retirement, we find a lot of people are traveling, doing a lot of things. They're on the go. But as they get older and into their young 80s, mid 80s, into their 90s, those are our slow go years. Things are slowing down. So I'm going to stop this expense at 2050 per his request. And we can change that to whatever you want to do. So now that we've got all of our expenses detailed, line item in there, let's just make sure that they aren't going to outlive their money, because that's usually the biggest thing that people have. You know, public speaking is a big fear for when you're in your 20s and 30s, but when we're getting close to retirement or in retirement, we want to make sure that we don't outlive our money and we're not a burden on our loved ones. So if I come over to tab 7, our retirement tab, you can see that at the age of 100, here's Jim's age, here's Pam's, in 2067, they still have plenty of liquid assets. So for this person, I'm not too worried about them outliving their money at this point so far. So let's go line by line and take a look at where this money is coming from. If I go to 2034, that's when Jim and Pam are now 67 years of age. You can see that there's no pension. And now I'm on my Social Security column, and right here they've got $6,050 a month coming in that first year. And then if I come down, you remember I gave them a cost of living adjustment of 2.25%. We're kind of be more on that conservative side. And then down at 69, you can see that's gone up a little bit more. At age 70, a little bit more, and then on and on and on. So we don't have any monthly cash flows. Now this is going to be if we had rental properties or maybe gas or oil rights or something like that. They don't. And right here, here's our Social Security income coming in. And then in, what is that, about 10 years from now, from 57 years of age to 67 when they retire, in 10 years, that monthly expense with inflation over those next 10 years is going to feel like they need over $13,000 a month to maintain the standard of living that they want to do or they are going to enjoy. So that means I'm going to have to pull out almost $8,000 a month, $96,000 a year out of their 401ks, which we would move over to a traditional IRA so we can help them manage and make sure they don't outlive their money. So you can see here in the first year, they've got about $2.1 million. And you can see this assets, maybe they're slowly coming down. I'm using a moderate, safe rate of return, nothing crazy, just in your 5s, no more than 6s. And you can see by pulling that money out, and I come all the way to the bottom down here to age 100, they never outlive their money, right? So that looks pretty good in that first example. But what I want to do is let's stress test this portfolio. Let's just simply say that, hey, listen, right at the age of 67, when Jim and Pam want to retire, the stock market's really bad. Let's just stress test this thing. So let's say in that first year, the market's down over 10%. And then the very next year, the market's down 13%. And then 3 years in a row, the market's down the next year 23%. So 3 straight years that the market's been down, and they've been pulling out between $90,000 to $100,000 out of their portfolio. This is called sequence of returns, and you've got to be very careful, especially in those first 3 years of retirement. So what I'd like to see is if the market's down like this, I prefer to take assets possibly from another asset that we've put to the side that's maybe not in the market and let this have an opportunity to rebound. But if this happens, now I would never let this happen, but if it did, and I scroll down, you can see that their money runs out in this scenario with the stress test on their portfolio at the age of 87. So I really don't like this. One is you got to be monitoring where you're taking money from is very, very important, and what to be doing in different economical times and market volatility during your retirement years. So now that we've market stress test that, and that's a little bit concerning, the other big thing that people talk about is number one is income. Make sure we don't outlive it. 2 is what do we do with the investments to make sure we never outlive our income or our assets. And then 3, what can we do about tax planning? All right, I don't want to do anything in the gray area, but I'll pay my fair share. I hear that all the time, but I don't want to pay more if I don't have to. So if I jump over to our tax tab, and I just simply say, let's go to our tax tracker. Let's just take a look if it makes any sense to maybe move some of this qualified money in the 401k out and over into a Roth IRA. It's not for everybody, but let's just see if it possibly may make sense. So I just tell the computer, say, hey, let's look at maybe converting some cash from those 401ks over a 5-year period. Computer says, okay, listen, that's about $91,000. If you got your standard deduction, we're not going to go crazy on the rate of return. We're just going to say 5.5 for the qualified, and then 5.5 rate of return on the Roth money. And you're in projected top bracket of 24%, but your true projected tax rate is only about 17%. Not bad at all. But all of that money, if you remember, is currently in qualified funds, $950,000. 650 of it was Jim's money, and the other 300-ish was in Pam's 401k. But we have no Roth amount. And those RMDs can get as high as over $130,000. If you're not familiar with RMDs, when you turn 73 or 75 years of age, depends when you're watching this video in your current age, that you're going to be forced to take required minimum distributions at that particular age. And it can unnecessarily tax your Social Security, cause all sorts of other problems. So we want to eliminate what's going to be happening for these folks in the future. So their projected lifetime tax is about $1.7 million. And their projected legacy to leave to loved ones is about $830,000. Now I know what you're thinking. Most people say, well, Tony, I want you to make sure that you take care of us. If there's anything left over for the kids, hey, that's just icing on the cake. I get it. I respect that. And I'm listening. But by simply moving money out of the 401ks or IRAs into Roth money, it's just automatically going to leave a bigger legacy. I can't help it. It's a good thing. So here I've now moved money to the Roth accounts. I've done these conversions, like you've seen up here in the top. And the projected lifetime tax now is about 1.1 million, or a savings of over $600,000 in taxes over this family's lifetime. And it also just automatically increased their legacy from $800,000 up to $1.4 million, or an extra $600,000 in legacy. So that's great. They're super excited. Hey, everybody wants to save money in taxes. We find that a lot of financial planners don't talk even about taxes, and unfortunately, a lot of EAs or CPAs don't do tax planning. It's one of our specialties, things that we love to help families with, and so it's definitely something that you need to be considering as you're nearing retirement. So let's just take a look at, if I back out of that plan, what is the impact? If all I simply did is I didn't change the portfolios at all, and all I implemented was some basic tax planning for Jim and Pam, what does that do when I go and now stress test their portfolio? If you remember, they were going to run out of money in their 80s in the current situation if the market was down 3 years. So now the scenario says, hey, I've done some tax planning, we've implemented some Roth conversions over a 5-year period, and now I want to go back and stress test my portfolio. Did that help out at all in any way? So I come back and I take a look at the same scenario. We're down 10% the first year, down 13% in the second year, and down 23% in the third year. And all I've done is simply done some Roth conversions over a 5-year period. And by simply doing that tax strategy, we went from money running out in our mid-80s to that money lasting all the way almost to the age of 100, running out of money at the age of 99. So I didn't take any different stress tests or doing any different portfolios for this family. I simply implemented tax planning, and look how many more years it added to that portfolio. So I stress that because I want you to consider doing tax planning in your own portfolio. But we still have a gap, right? We've talked about maximizing the Social Security, making sure we never outlive our income, making sure that we've got our investments all in the right spots, but we still have a couple gaps. What happens if something happens to Jim today, right? He's still 57 years of age. Now, Jim and Pam are blessed. They're 57, the kids are out of the house, and they believe that they really don't need any life insurance. And that could be true in many, many cases. However, if Jim kicks the bucket on us early, and Pam's willing to reduce her lifestyle, those expenses a little bit, cut the current expenses down to about 65%, she truly needs about $700,000 of life insurance on Jim if she wants to maintain that same standard of living. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it's definitely some things that you need to be thinking about in your plan. And so as she gets older, 2044, 20 years down the road, she doesn't need any life insurance. But maybe today she needs a little bit. It could be something simple as a 10 or 15, maybe a 20-year term policy. Doesn't have to be anything super expensive, but something she definitely wants to maybe consider, or at least eliminate or understand that she has this risk in her overall portfolio. Now, you can design the best financial plan in the world, but one of the biggest things that causes it to fall apart is the cost of healthcare, long-term care. Whether it's at-home care, if you need to go to a facility, it can be pretty expensive. So you got to have this conversation of what does it look like to protect that gap, that exposure to the policy. And I understand most of us want to believe that it's never going to happen to us, or our kids are going to take care of us, or something like that. But the truth is most of us don't want to put that burden on our children, and we just want to make sure that our loved ones are taken care of. In today's environment, in 2024, a 57-year-old in our state, and we can go any different state over here on the right? We got clients all over the country. We can take the different costs of different states, but I'm going to use Arkansas as of right now. Our cost is almost $8,000 a month. I put my own mother into a nursing facility during COVID. It wasn't quite as expensive, but also it wasn't the Ritz-Carlton type long-term care facility either. With the cost of inflation of over 3%, you can see when Jim turns 80, that true cost looks more like about $16,000 a month for long-term care. And so if I take this and I come down here, you can see when Jim's 80 years of age and now he needs long-term care, $16,000 over a 4-year period. Look right here. This number, $15,000. That's their monthly normal expenses. Now, all of a sudden, Jim needs to have at-home care, or he goes to a facility. It's going to cost them an extra $16,000 a month. That jumps those expenses from $15,000 and almost doubles them to $28,000. A little bit of cost of or inflation over the next couple of years, it hits over $30,000. So you have to ask yourself, am I saying that you need to go buy a long-term care policy? No. But should you be aware of the risk? Absolutely. And what does that impact look like on your plan just in case this happens? So if we come over here to the far right-hand column, I'm trucking along and I've still got great assets, but look how fast pulling $30,000 a month out of a portfolio, over $300,000, almost $400,000 over a 4-year period, can dramatically start to pull assets down really, really fast. Now, in this scenario, Pam still makes it to age 94, not bad, but you just got to ask yourself, do they self-insure? Nothing wrong with that. Or maybe they look at some sort of a policy that combines maybe a little bit of life insurance and some long-term care protection. There's all sorts of options available out there for folks to do. But you got to understand the risk, and you need to start preparing earlier rather than later. So I hope today's video was helpful. We just wanted to give you some ideas to be thinking about whether you're going to get ready to retire in 3, 5, 7, or 10 years from now, or you just retired in the last couple years. So always remember to do your planning, and as I always say at the end of every single video, consult a licensed professional who understands your specific goals and dreams.